Welcome to the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, episode number 388. A cinematographer is a visual psychiatrist, moving an audience, making them think the way you want them to think, painting pictures in the dark. Gordon Willis.
Broadcasting from the back alley in Hollywood, it's the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, where we show you how to survive and thrive as an indie filmmaker in the jungles of the film biz. And here's your host, Alex Ferrari.
Welcome to another episode of the Indie Film Hustle Podcast. I am your humble and quarantined host, Alex Ferrari. Today's show is sponsored by Rise of the Filmtrepreneur, how to turn your independent film into a profitable business. It's harder today than ever before for independent filmmakers to make money with their films. From predatory film distributors ripping them off to huckster film aggregators who prey upon them, the odds are stacked against the indie filmmaker. The old distribution model of making money with your film is broken, and there needs to be a change. The future of independent filmmaking is the entrepreneurial filmmaker or the filmtrepreneur. In Rise of the Filmtrepreneur, I break down how to actually make money with your film projects and show you how to turn your indie film into a profitable business. With case studies examining successes and failures, this book shows you the step-by-step method to turn your passion into a profitable career. If you're making a feature film, series, or any other kind of video content, the Filmtrepreneur method will set you up for success. The book is available in paperback, ebook, and of course, audiobook. If you want to order it, just head over to www.filmbizbook.com. That's filmbizbook.com. Before we get started, guys, I set up a special link to help people affected by the coronavirus, and you can donate to Feed America. There is a lot of people in need out there, and Feed America is a great organization, and they're helping millions of people on a daily basis, and they also need your help. If you want to donate even $5, $10, it goes a long way. Head over to indiefilmhustle.com/help. Now, guys, I want to welcome back to the show returning champion, Suki Medencevic. And Suki is an A.S.C. cinematographer. He is one of the original top 10 guests I had on the show. He is episode number 9. And I've been friends with Suki over 20 years now, and I absolutely adore him. And I wanted him back on the show to talk a little bit about the coronavirus, how he sees production working moving forward, what he's heard about how Hollywood is planning to reopen Quibi and how that whole world and how changing of formats and how cinematographers are shooting for that platform, as well as to discuss his new course, Light and Face, the Art of Cinematography. Now, I've taken a lot of lighting and cinematography courses over the course of my career, and I've worked with some amazing cinematographers and taken master classes and workshops with some Oscar-winning cinematographers. But I got to tell you that this course, Light and Face, is by far my favorite cinematography course I've ever taken. I loved it so much that I begged Suki to make it part of Indie Film Hustle Academy and launch Indie Film Hustle Academy with this course in place because I needed to get this information, this course, to the tribe. What is so wonderful about how Suki teaches this course is he takes you from the very beginning, the basic, how to light a human face with one open light bulb. And from there, he takes you through this journey in the course that at the end of it, you're lighting Blade Runner style scenes all around the face. It really is a game-changing course. I'm super excited to have Suki on to talk about that and everything else we're going to be discussing in the episode. And at the end of the show, I'm going to show you how you can save $400 on this amazing course. But we'll get to that after the interview. So without any further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Suki Medencevic. I'd like to welcome to the show Suki Medencevic. How are you, my friend?
I am very good, very good. Good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you as well. You are a returning champion, sir. You are one of the first guests of the Indie Film Hustle podcast. You were episode number 9 back in the day when I was just a fledgling podcaster. You were so kind to be on my show, and I never forgot that, my friend.
Well, for you, my friend, anytime. And I'm very happy to see that how Indie Film Hustle has grown and become the empire, which I'm very happy to see that.
I don't know about an empire, but it has grown a lot. There's a lot more ears now than there was when you and I first had our conversation about the art of cinematography. But I thought it was a good time to bring you back on the show, not only because you and I teamed up to bring a new course to Indie Film Hustle Academy, which is Light and Face, the Art of Cinematography, which we'll talk about later. But also, we're recording this during quarantine. We're recording this in a very unstable, unknown time of what's going to happen in our industry. And I definitely want to touch base on that a little later on in the episode as well. But I want to get into, well, first of all, for people who don't know who you are, how did you get into the business?
Oh, well, that's a very long story, but in a short, my entrance to the business was basically as straightforward as it gets. I studied cinematography first in a film school, Film Academy in Belgrade, back in Yugoslavia. And from there, I continued my education in Prague at FAMU, which is one of the world's very prestigious film schools and probably one of, I would say, top schools for cinematography. So upon completing my 5 years of studying of cinematography, master program of cinematography, I managed to get to United States, first as a guest of university. So I came to UCLA as what they call a visiting scholar. Spent a few years among the students, but mostly doing like seminars and workshops with students and also learning English, because when I came to United States, I really didn't speak any English. And so I felt that was a very important thing. And gradually, I think I was looking forward and trying to figure out ways to get in the film industry. Mm-hmm. Getting to university was just my kind of like port of entry, but really getting in the film business was a whole different game. And when I reached the point, even though I felt I was educated and qualified to do the job, I reached the point that really to start in a film business, the moment you get a chance, you have to really deliver 100%. This is your moment. And I had also choice in the beginning to choose either going with a traditional Hollywood route from like becoming a camera assistant and gradually make it up to be a cinematographer. But in my case, I realized that would be kind of like a waste of time, because I felt that I spent enough time in a film school to get educated. So I wanted to start as a cinematographer, which is more risky, more longer route. But back then that was the way, kind of like you had to wait for the opportunity, because the traditional way of getting a film business was still very present. Like, you go as assistant and go on and go on. So I eventually got my first film break in 1994.
Yes,
I did my
I'm very familiar. I'm very familiar with that film, sir.
I know, and I think that's the you're my biggest fan when it comes down to the movie Embrace of the Vampire. My first film I did with Alyssa Milano and Jennifer Tilly and Martin Kemp. It was low budget vampire horror movie shot in Minnesota in I think 12 days we had.
Right. And
that was it. That was it pretty much from there.
And you launched from there.
Interesting detail is that from the movie, from the finishing the movie Embrace of the Vampire, from the last day, I took a taxi to the airport in St. Paul and took the flight to Taiwan, to Taipei, to do my second feature film called In a Strange City, which was as opposite as it can be from the horror film. It was like a nice love story drama with very nice budget, very relaxed schedule, and that was my second feature film. But getting on that film was very unusual, because year before I was in Taiwan doing a series of lectures and seminars. So I established some connections in Taiwan, but I never thought I would be doing film there. And then a year later, I get invited to do the movie, which was very unusual in many, many ways. We can even have a whole podcast or meeting, Skype meeting, just talking about experience working in different country
Oh yeah.
With a crew that doesn't speak English, and I don't speak Mandarin or whatever the local dialect they speak.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
So we still managed to make the movie despite all these barriers, but it was a challenge, I have to tell you.
So you've gotten a lot of shrapnel over the years working in this industry. You've done a ton of movies. What is the biggest mistake that you see young filmmakers make when they start out?
Well, things have changed now in the last 20 years since I've been in this business. Things have changed because more and more new filmmakers and the cinematographers, the accessibility and being able to get in a film business and make the film is far, far easier than it used to be 20 years ago. Now, anybody who has even iPhone or any kind of cheap camera can do something and make something, make whatever the narrative form it is. The mistakes, well, I see some great works by very aspiring, starting filmmakers and cinematographers, but I also see a lot of not so good stuff. And I think mistake would be not investing in educating yourself in the language of what you're doing. So understanding visual storytelling, I think, when it comes down, just in case of cinematographers, to me is the key element. Being able to point the camera, you will for sure get it properly exposed. You will for sure, with a couple of plugins, easily manipulate image to look kind of flashy and, maybe even interesting and capture somebody's attention. But mistake is if you think that form will overpower the content, is the way that you're going to tell the story. That's, to me, something that it's most commonly I see it on, and I see tons of films on Vimeo, on all kinds of stuff. I see it. I see on YouTube, people post in their own channels, and but very, very rarely, I would say, I see clear artistic intent behind whatever you do it, even if it's a small experimental film. I mean, I do see, of course, some great short films and some experimental new things but to me, majority of the content that I see on now in the social media, obviously, is something that is more designed to just grab your attention, just to grab somebody, even for a couple seconds, get a click, so you can make extra whatever money you're going to make by somebody visiting or liking your content. And that's the goal, I think. It's not the goal to be really storyteller. Mm-hmm. And it's more like show how many likes you have and show how many followers you have. So I think in general, in approach and philosophy, why are you doing what you're doing? I think it's the main mistake that I see among filmmakers and cinematographers.
Now, when you first started out doing low budget work. And is there any tips that you can have about how you would approach lighting on a lower budget? Because I know the gear is a lot cheaper than it was when you were starting out. Now you can get lighting gear very affordably, good lighting gear very affordably. But how do you approach creatively lighting a low budget project?
I approach every project differently, completely differently. And again, it all starts from the script. It all starts from the story. And regardless of budget, I've seen some big budget films done with really, really minimum lighting, minimum package, because the style calls for something that is very, I would call it naturalistic, something that you want the camera to be very much participating in the story, not being intrusive, not to make point of being present in the story. So I've seen some really big budget films made that way, where you really almost have no lights, and I can just name a couple. Like The New World is the one that comes to mind, which was done pretty much without any single light. Maybe just like one scene was done, and The Revenant, also the one that Chivo Lubetsky did a few years ago, is exactly the example of that. I think the whole lighting package he had was like a couple light bulbs that he used for like one scene around the fire, but that's it. So you really don't need to have a huge lighting package in order to tell the story, in order to make interesting visuals. You better understand what is the purpose of the visuals that you're going to use and how you're going to support the story. We live in times where it's easier than ever to make interesting image. We have cameras that are now digital camera. They are so sensitive to light that you can, if you really want, you can shoot any film without any single light, basically relying just on practical light sources and with very little supplemental lighting. And I think this is kind of the way the filmmaking in general is now going in a direction that we now, because of the just like technical capability of the cameras that we are using, is enabling us now to rely far more on the actual practical light sources than we used to. Like every light source, then you have to augment it, supplement it, and create something that is motivating. This time you can just put actual whatever the light source is, and it will give you what you need to get. So to answer it, really, your very complex question, how you approach in low budget, I think it doesn't really matter if it's low budget or big budget. It still has to, again, come down to what is that you're trying to accomplish. And sometimes you might need more help from the art department and set dressing to provide you with the proper type of practicals than you will need from your grip and lighting department to bring you all kinds of lights. And you might actually ruin the whole thing that you might be able to just capture if it's done well.
Well, it's kind of like, Chivo, if you look at Tree of Life or The Revenant, the kind of shots that he was doing doesn't lend itself to large lighting packages. You can't just meander around and do these long takes. It's much more complex. It would cost a lot more money to do that. Am I correct?
Yes, but there's also another approach, which is kind of interesting. We even see on some pretty decent budget films and TV shows that this kind of a naturalistic or realistic approach is very common. Like you will get on the set and you will have a set which is built on the stage, but it's built with a real ceiling, real walls and everything. Of course, flying walls if you need it. But in general, you still light it as if you are on real location. And there's something about studio lighting versus location lighting. It's very difficult for a lot of cinematographers to switch the mode, that even if you're going for a very much realistic look, it's very difficult to switch to the mode then that you can actually not turn on the light just because it's there, not to turn on all the lights because you have them available. I think it's far more interesting not to even think that you are on the stage, to think you are on real place, real location, and understand the logic of the light. And then create something that looks very much believable and naturalistic in terms of how the light works with the place. And let certain mistake to be present. Like if you have, let's say, sunlight, it's just like creating some hot streak on the floor or somewhere that you would normally have in location. You have to kind of think backwards and say, how can I introduce light which is more realistic and naturalistic if you're going in that direction, than making it all perfectly balanced and controlled and putting backlights where they don't belong and have light coming from whatever direction that doesn't really make much sense. But again, it all depends what you're going for.
So if you were going to have one light that you were going to bring with you into battle in a low budget scenario, what would be your go-to light? Like if I'm going to go shoot, and again, I know it depends on story, but let's talk generally.
Well, I think if there is one light that I would use two lights. I will have to have two lights, but I will use one or another.
Sure.
And one of them would be maybe one by one, just like one by one light panel, but light one. The light, and there are many manufacturers. They make these small Roscoe
LEDs.
Them,
the LED.
LED one by one. Why LED one by one? I've been so many times in a situation that everything looks perfect. And all you need is just to get a little bit beautiful light or just get a little bit glint in a close-up of the actor, but you want to light it without lighting the whole set. Having that light, just a little light next to the camera, will give you that very invisible yet beautiful light, which will not affect anything on the scene, on the set, and it will make people look nice without any kind of distracting shadows or something that does make much sense. So that would be my choice, because these lights nowadays, LED technology has gone.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
So far that they're so powerful, and also the color of these lights is now so good that you can easily blend it with many other tungsten sources or anything else you're using. And of course, my choice number one would be Airy Sky Panel 60, probably, because 60 is good size, and that type of bigger, much more versatile light source can give me far more options if I need to light, even wider area. I can use it as just like panel, which is size maybe like 1x2, or I can put like softbox, make it like convert it and turn it into something that is even nicer and bigger and make it beautiful, like soft key light, wrapping light, and also these lights, especially Airy Sky Panel, is designed in a way that has extreme color accuracy, so the skin tone, everything is going to look right. But also it gives me option to change the color temperature easily, just pressing the button. Or if I want to create the effect of, let's say, I don't know, the candle or TV or lightning even, it's very easy. It's designed, it's almost like pre-programmed, so you can just press the button and get whatever you want.
So can you quickly talk about color accuracy with these LEDs? Because I know that's a big issue with buying lower quality or cheaper LEDs, and people don't really understand the difference. What this is a CRE, and like what's the rating of it? Can you explain that just a little bit?
The whole thing about LED lights is that I don't want to get too technical about it, but people should understand that not all LEDs are created equally. Why? Because not everybody needs high-end, super color accurate LED lights, which is matching perfectly the whatever spectrum of your regular normal tungsten source. So in the early days, maybe like 6-7 years ago or so, when LEDs really started like coming to the market and exploding as everybody's now making LEDs, there were so many manufacturers, but when you do really very accurate tests and line them up, you will see some of them are green, some of them magenta, some of them are purple. They have very weird color shift, which we don't see by our eye because our eyes are not so sensitive to the whole this color discrepancies. Cameras and our eye very quickly adjust to white balance, and we have perfect color balance very quickly, but cameras don't. You tell camera what the color temperature is, and camera will follow this. And if you say this is 3200 and you look at something that's lit and looks kind of greenish or whatever, it's going to give you kind of very strange color rendering. So a lot of manufacturers, based on the research and based on the suggestions from Academy of Motion Picture and their scientific department, as well as also American Society of Cinematographers Motion Image Council, which had also one division which is specialized only in research and product advising for the LED manufacturers. They developed a system of this color rendering, CR, color rendering index, which basically explain how accurately the color is reproduced compared to whatever the standard light source is. But color rendering index is not only one. There is another way of there's really another way of really analyzing good, what the difference between good and not so good LED lights is. And then basically you get into individual color, and then it shows how each individual part of the spectrum is reproduced in the spectrum of your LED lights. So bottom line is this. Technology is advancing constantly. And if you are going by some more recognized brands when it comes down to the LED light source, you will be probably doing well. And of course, it comes with a price. In LED technology, you definitely get what you pay for.
Now, lenses. glass, as it's called on the streets. It is no matter how advanced the technology gets, no matter how beautiful, how many Ks you're shooting, generally speaking, the glass is the glass. It is the eye of the sensor. And what is your go-to lens or style of lens or manufacturer of lens? Because I know that's a really touchy subject for a lot of cinematographers. That they just like, I'm a Zeiss guy, I'm a Cook guy, I'm a Claire guy, Leica. What is the lens that you love and why?
Well, I will tell you. Just recently, I had the opportunity to see a really amazing test of 33 lens sets. One of the most comprehensive and extensive lens testing done by Denis Lenoir, who is a wonderful friend of mine, a member of the A.S.C, and also French Society, AFC. So what they did, I think, a year ago, they did this amazing blind test, 33 sets of lenses. I don't even know that there are 33 different types of lenses, but actually they are,
sure,
including some of them I've never heard of. And so what they did, they photographed identical scene by changing lens, basically wide shot and medium, tighter shot of the same. So they did 33 takes of identical, simple scene. Guy and the girl inside the studio. She walks to the window, comes back, and they talk. She walks into medium close-up. But enough of the setup, it was really well done to show how the lens is handling wide shot, high contrast, flare, sharpness, skin tone, everything you can see in this very short clip that was done with every lens. What we did watching this test was we had no idea what we're watching. We had no idea what lens we are looking at. We just had some kind of whatever code. And while we are watching, we had to give it a grade. What we like, do we like it? We don't like it. And without knowing what we are evaluating. And then we watched it 3 times in random order. Mm-hmm. So, which is a great way to do it. So it's not like you will recognize the pattern. So there's no pattern. So after reviewing this 3 times, we were given the key. And say the lens ACLXY was Cooke S4, and the lens BL4MN was, I don't know,
Zeiss,
Samilux or Zeiss or whatever. So it was really amazing because there was a lot of mostly members from the A.S.C cinematographers, and it was very interesting because after the screening, we all ended up sitting and having coffee and kind of comparing notes. What was shocking to me to find out that some of the lenses which we would automatically just discard as like, no, this just, these are like, don't even bother, these are not serious lenses, had some of the most highest score. I can tell you, CP2 really? Lenses, which CP2 is a cheap lenses. I mean, they're good size, made by Zeiss, but still, they're just like still camera lenses modified so they can be used in digital cinematography. Yeah. All across, people love them. They're not like highest scoring lenses, but they're lenses. They're like
solid. They're solid.
Solid. Wow. Overall solid performance. CP2. I mean, I don't even bother deal with them. Yeah. But it changed my mind because I looked at 3 times on 3 different events. Yeah. I gave them very good score. Of course, some of the lenses, as expected, did really well, like Cooke S5. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Interestingly enough, my favorite was always Cooke S4, and I loved Cooke S4. And Cooke S4 scored well. Mm-hmm. In my blind test, it proves that I like Cooke S4. I like the look of it. I like the skin tone. I like the contrast, sharpness, all things I like about this lens. Cooke S5 scored almost perfect for me, which is amazing. But the biggest surprise to me and everybody else, because I was not the only one who gave it a really, really high grade, was Russian-made lens, which I don't even remember the name. Something digital evolution, I don't know. I have to go back to my notes and find out what lens, but that lens particularly was almost everybody's favorite. And that lens that lens scored among all of us probably the highest. And to me, that was like, wow, this lens is like $50,000 or even more. And this lens is maybe, I don't know, maybe like 10,000 or less.
Wow.
And it did absolutely like perfect. And this is some like, it's a new lens manufacturer. I don't know the name, but to me, so this is long answer to a very simple question. What's my favorite lens? It all depends. It all depends. I think that's why we always test.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
Because it depends on like what we're going for. If you're going for the film that requires, if it's like romantic period piece, well, most likely I will not go for super sharp, crisp lenses that will give me this very like
every detail. Yeah.
You might have a lens which already held a built-in kind of like natural softness in it, and that's why maybe I don't know. Maybe size would be my size, classic size. Mm-hmm. Super speed, not master primes would be probably a good choice, or maybe going with a Cook S4 would be probably, because overall that's my favorite lens and it will do the job. Interestingly enough, Panavision Primo lenses, which we always used as a benchmark, as the lens that defines the quality, scored okay. not on my test, but it scored kind of okay, good. Yeah, that's good, no question. It's a good lens, but nothing amazingly better than, I don't know, let's say
a C2, a CP2.
CP2, yeah.
Which is amazing. Like when you say that like a Zeiss CP2 lens versus a Panavision Primo. I know. And you're looking at like, I don't know, maybe $100,000 piece of glass versus, I don't know, $2,000. So it's really it's all subjective. It's really what comes down to do. And there's no universal lens. There's no lens that can be perfect for everything. No, of course. And also choice of lenses is, not only in terms of like which lens handles skin tone and contrast and flare and stuff. It's a complex question. It's a complex question. Like if you look at films like Saving Private Ryan, I mean, Janusz Kaminski asked Panavision to actually completely remove the anti-glaring coating. So he wanted to get lenses that's really looking bad, that it has a flaring, it has all kind of things that we've been for decades trying to get fixed. Now, like, oh no, we have to now bring me back to that completely kind of raw, uncorrected look, because that was only lens that worked. That style of lenses worked so well for Saving Private Ryan, but it will not work for, I don't know, some Avengers. It won't work for Avengers. It will not work for Avengers, for sure. Yeah, exactly. Now, do you? I know a lot of, because we've done some work together. I know you'd like to write down sometimes your lighting setups. Do you do it all the time? Like you actually just like storyboard out where the lights are supposed to go and give it to the gaffer? What's the process for you? Well, the process is actually I would say pretty much like mainstream, straightforward. If it's location project, if it's location show, well, I normally during the tech scout, during the location scout, when we talk about what the scene is going to take place, and when I talk to director, okay, what is the concept here? Is it more like traditionally dolly with the coverage, or are we talking camera, handheld, or Steadicam, and we are looking everywhere, going inside, outside? So depending on what we are going for, will tell me what options I have. If it's, let's say, traditionally, house, living room, and we go covering the living room, hallway, bedroom, whatever, I will make sure to have enough light that can give me control. And it's all about control, because on location, you are always, in a way, depending on the situation, what's happening outside. And very often you might be already losing daylight, but you have to continue making it look like it was 9 o'clock in the morning. So my approach always is try to be as least as possible dependent on a daylight and available light, because it's inconsistent, it changes during the day. So I want to have enough light that I can create my light that will be same from the moment we step in and the moment we're up. That requires usually planning, and I would tell my gaffer, okay, we will be looking this way, sun is coming from this direction, so we have to block the sun or do this, or maybe soften the sun, but still get my HMI lights, put them in the right position so we know we can maintain this consistent look
that looks perfect 8 o'clock in the morning, but looks really ugly at noon. That's kind of how I approach it when it comes down to interior. When it comes down to the exterior, well, it really depends. On the show I was doing for Disney for 3 seasons called Stuck in the Middle, we had very challenging exterior because the set was built between 2 walls of studios, 2 stages. And for the exterior part, we had a window of light that basically goes between 9, depending on time of the year, but let's say between 9:30 in the morning until 3. And that's it. That's when you have a sunlight. And then after 3 o'clock, you're in the shadow and basically everything just like completely, overcast. So for us to control the sunlight, to control the daylight on this particular very challenging location was big deal, much bigger deal than anybody would anticipate, because I had to have my light in the morning when we start to light, because we cannot wait for sunlight to come out. So I had to light it in the morning with a big light, Arimax or something on the condor to give me exactly the light when the sun comes in. That will match at 9:30 when sun comes up. It will match what I was doing with my light. And the same thing in the afternoon. So when light is gone, I can still bring my light and continue lighting. So the exterior presents always big challenge. Lighting for exterior is always very challenging. It requires far more manpower, far more equipment. So I think when it comes down to the exterior, it's always much better to observe really well what works in terms of the angle, how you can take advantage of what sunlight gives you, have some light standing by just in case you lose it, usually a couple of big guns, instead of just completely relying on what's out there, because then it puts you in a situation that you have no plan B. When it comes down to studio, whole different situation. I can tell you, like, for instance, on this big setup we had on Stuck in the Middle, we had a couple stages with the sets. In a pre-production time, I had my plan. I had a floor plan and even 3D model, 3D diagrams done by the production designer and our department. So they told me, okay, this is what we are looking. This is a living room. This is a stairs. This is a bedroom. This is a hallway. This is a kitchen. So we had all these sets and layout. So based on set and layout, I very, very precisely with my gaffer went and we talk about what would be the best way to create, let's say, overall ambient light inside this room. How are we going to deal with the exterior? How are we going to create that behind the windows we see part of the set that actually is built outside? So we have to match the exterior on the location with our exterior, basically set built on the stage. So to create all kind of different moods, we had to have a lot of lights positioned. Never, of course, it never means that I'm going to use all of them, but it's like being able to turn off some lights, bring them up, bring them down. I would be able to quickly program different moods. Let's say morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, breakfast. I knew exactly the amount of ambient, amount of my sunlight effect, and I would create something that will be programmed and stored. So it takes time, but very precise planning to get every light properly placed and programmed. So when you get in production, when you really get everybody on the set, you have to be ready to go in 5 to 7 minutes. But that's why, to me, having everything in place, even if it's just standing by, you never know, director might change and say, oh, let's get maybe this shot, or blocking might change. And all of a sudden you're looking different directions. So you have to be ready to react and respond very quickly.
So Suki, we're currently, as of this recording, living in a COVID-19 world, and as of right now, Hollywood is pretty much shut down. What do you see production looking like in a post-coronavirus kind of world? Because we really don't know. It's not going to be what it was. So what do you think it's going to be?
Well, that's a big question that I don't think anybody knows. Anybody knows the answer. Well, one thing we know for sure, things will change, at least for a certain foreseeable future. I would say maybe at least for a year, maybe even more, because it's not only film business, it's every business. And of course, everybody's concerned about the jobs and security and balancing jobs and safety is it's a big deal. Economy. I understand everybody's concerned about economy coming back, but we have to be super careful, super smart about how we're going to do this.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
So I know there have been a lot of proposals developed by different studios, different production entities, and they're trying to figure it out what is the safest way that we can go back to production, still do what we do, but do it differently. I know there are some proposals, I think by Lionsgate, that proposing basically that entire cast and crew will be in a way created as a kind of like a cluster and isolated for the whole duration of production. So no outside contact, you basically just between place of stay and the studio or whatever you're shooting, and that's it. I don't know how this is doable, but everybody's trying to come up with some kind of solution to get people on the set. I mean, yes, we can have a mask, we can have protective equipment, but how can you be on the set and have your focus puller? Well, maybe focus puller can do the remote focus, but still, somebody has to push the dolly. You have to get in a close-up of the actor. I mean, how can you maintain 6 feet? I don't know. My feeling, the way I'm seeing how things are changing is we will be seeing whole new different types of content that is going to emerge. People will start doing things like you and I now talking and creating something that makes sense. I don't know if we can make everything look like everybody's now in Zoom and we can create things which are kind of like Zoom style show, but that might be one way of doing things. People might be doing a lot of I'm sure like projects which would be skeleton crew with very small cast, minimum crew, minimum lighting, minimum equipment, minimum everything, and still try to get some story. I'm not sure about big productions, big shows, how they're going to do it.
Like Marvel, like how is Marvel going to do anything?
Well, I think they might do it differently. They might do now. I don't want to be thinking completely futuristic, but who knows? We might get in a situation that we can have virtual sets. That everything would be just like virtual. They already have it. They use it for Mandalorian.
Yeah, Mandalorian.
They use it for Star Trek. So they use this concept of virtual sets. So you get in the stage, everything's LED, get your actors, and get the cameras, and you're creating a show which is you can place anywhere you want. Yeah. So that would be one way of doing it. But maybe next step would be, you might have actor whose performance you can just capture and do the face replacement. There is actually a very interesting film I've seen a couple of years ago, which I would highly recommend to everybody to see it. 5 years ago, it was made. It's a British film. I forgot the name of the director, but the movie is called Congress. Mm-hmm. And it is with Robin Wright and Harvey Keitel as the lead. But the concept, the premise of the film is Robin Wright is aging actress, and her manager, Harvey Keitel, is trying to lock the deal that she can be basically Robin Wright at this age in perpetuity. So she will never age. Interesting. So what they do is they put her in this special kind of like sphere with a motion capturing array of 1,000 cameras and take her to the whole range of emotions and capture them. And from this point on, they can apply this emotion and her expression into any character they do, and she will always stay the way she was at whatever age of 40, whatever she was when the movie was made. That's very interesting. Very, very interesting film because second half of the film is animated.
Very interesting.
That's really interesting, where you see now all these characters, including Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt, and everybody's already in that world of. So I don't know if it's going to be futuristic to the point that that all the actors will just provide the emotions and expressions and deliver the lines, and then they will be later on implemented on 3D models of some avatars. I don't know.
It's going to be really interesting. I know at the studio level, when I saw I've been watching the behind the scenes of Mandalorian, and you're just like, this is amazing. Like, I heard about it and I saw some of it and I heard the rumblings, and God knows what James Cameron's is working on right now on Avatar, which I hear the technology there is like at another completely other place that we haven't even heard of yet. So the technology for those bigger shows, I think, is going to make a big difference in post-coronavirus world. But for independent filmmakers on a lower budget, it's going to be smaller crews. It's going to be, very minimal, very kind of like what I did with my last film, 2 crew members and some cat, and we ran around. Though I couldn't make that movie now because there's no Sundance Film Festival, so I couldn't shoot it.
But you pioneered the concept. That proves that you're a visionary. You're a visionary.
Wow.
People will really now come back to you, and for you can really consult them and advise them. This is how we did it. This is how you can have one person doing 5 positions and still make something. So
I will send you the check later, sir.
Please.
Now there is something new on the horizon, or it's not on the horizon. It's happening now. Quibi, and Quibi is a very unique thing. I'm not sure if how it's gonna survive in the future, but it is something that's going on right now. And I was talking to you off air about how shooting a Quibi show is different. Can you talk about how they capture footage on set?
Well, I have not shot a Quibi project. I have a couple of friends. They've done it, and basically, it's a whole new way of basically storytelling, I would say, which incorporates the new trends of viewing content, as well as new trends of technology that we can use. So, iPhone. I mean, who would think that iPhone is going to become like, or your whatever mobile phone that you are using will become the almost main way of getting your whatever content is. So they figure it out. If we limit the amount of time, so nobody's going to spend like 2 hours watching a movie on iPhone. I mean, some people will, but let's say majority will not. But if you deliver whatever you're delivering in chunks of, 10 minutes or whatever, that's something anybody can do while they're waiting in line or riding on the bus or on a metro or in a car or whatever. So that's something you can use your time to watch the content. So to start, that's interesting concept that you are breaking down, even if it's a full feature-length film, you break it down into chapters. First chapter, second, 10, whatever, and then you have, if you splice it all together, you can have a film. But what is most interesting about Quibi is the option that you can change the aspect ratio. Well, actually, aspect ratio is the same, but it's are you viewing it vertically or are you viewing it horizontally? So imagine the nightmare now for anybody who has to frame something that looks equally good in a vertical as well as the horizontal. Well, it's a challenge, but obviously they figure it out that you can, if you're shooting with a high enough resolution, let's say 6K resolution is good enough to give you enough of the horizontal as well as the vertical angle. So you have the same height as well as the width, depending how you're gonna orient the image. And all you have to do is, while you're doing it, making sure that the content that is in horizontal, if turned around in vertical, will still work for the scene. And so I think that's smart. It's clever. I haven't been really getting much into Quibi because I still have to catch up with what was the show? Game of Thrones, right? I have to catch up on that one.
And Tiger King, obviously Tiger King.
That's done. Yeah.
You already consumed that.
yeah. Tiger King, I have it behind. But you know what I'm saying? Basically, it's like, that's new technology. That's a new thing. That's a new way. And I think it's just normal thing that we are now seeing attempts by, big companies that create content creators that they're going to use what is available and just create something that you can watch. And
they're shooting it with basically a 6K kind of camera and then just doing it all in post.
Yeah, doing it in post. But when you do it, normally if you're filming, you have your frame line. So,
sure.
This is for iPhone 10, iPhone 11. If you turn it around, so, this is for Samsung 9, whatever, Samsung.
So they have all those frames on set.
They have the specs. Yes, they have a spec, so you can actually control it and say, oh, yeah, that's going to work.
That's insane. That must be a nightmare for a cinematographer, like to frame that.
Yes, but I think like everything else, you get used to it. Like, okay, that's how it is, and
But you're also you're very unique, Suki, because you've always been very open to change. You embrace change, you embrace technology changes, you embrace things that are different in the way they're doing it. You're very open-minded, where I know a lot of cinematographers who fight to stay the way things are, and they generally don't survive. So that's a big lesson for any cinematographer listening out there. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show. That things are changing so rapidly. I mean, I just remember film to digital. That took a decade for people to finally say, okay, Ari, okay, Red, I get it. It took, but you were there, you saw it. It was like 10 years. But now things are changing so fast, so quickly that if you don't change, you're going to be left behind.
Well, that's nature. That's nature. I think that's nature of every business, of every industry. I mean, it's known fact that adaptability is key to survival. So if you are not willing and ready to adapt to whatever the new conditions, well, you will be left behind. And I don't want to sound too philosophical, but it's a human nature. We as humans are programmed in a way that we want to be kind of set in our whatever the frame of mind, because safe. This is what gives you. It gives you safety, gives you your safe zone. Stepping out of your safe zone, it's always risky. It's associated with something, venturing into unknown.
Right. The tiger could eat you. The tiger could eat you around the corner.
The tiger could eat you or something. So it's right. Just by human nature, we are programmed and coded to, stay as you are, especially if you invest a lot of time perfecting something. Right. And creating something, right. And coming, okay, now I know how to do this. And by the way, that doesn't count. Now we have something new. Well, you have to be able to really at least try and be open-minded about it. You might not necessarily always like it, but you have to be open to maybe, who knows, maybe something interesting might come out of it. I mean, you think about cinematography, we were shooting black and white for whatever, and then the color came on. Well, there's a Technicolor. So there are cinematographers who they know how to do Technicolor. They don't care about black and white. They're black and white who don't know how to do Technicolor. And then things change. And of course, cinematography advance. And then we get into a point that we are shooting with only, I don't know, this lenses or that lenses. I'm only Panavision or I'm only Arri. How about the other one? Then you have to be able to try different things, because it just gives you a wider field and gives you a better understanding of what you really have available for you.
Now, can you discuss the color, the impact of color on lighting? It's something that's within either the color of the light or the production design, and what that does emotionally, what that does. I know it's again another large question.
Ooh, where do I start about color? Well, in my aesthetics, I would say, in the way I think about images, color is extremely important, because colors have very, very strong emotional impact in storytelling. We respond to colors, and it's known psychologically, physiologically, that certain colors invoke certain kind of emotional response. And for us, it's been known forever. And when you think about in history of art, how certain artists use certain color to convey certain emotion. I mean, if you think about Rembrandt or Caravaggio or Vermeer, or I don't have to go any further. But if you think about, and not to even get into abstract paintings, where it's all about the color. It's all about how you respond to the square piece of whatever the color, orange position juxtaposed against blue or pink, or thinking about just expressionism and modern art of 20th century is just perfect example about bringing colors as a pure emotional way to communicate. You don't even know what you're looking, but you're emotionally responding to the color. So in cinematography, I was fortunate to be trained by one of the world's, well, at the time, he was my pedagogue at a film school in Prague. And he was one of the most world's, and well, at least in that part of the world, most renowned experts on color, Jaroslav Kuchera. He was one of the pioneers, at least in that part of the world, how to tell story emotionally just by using the color. Another great example would be Vittorio Storaro. I mean, I'm a big fan of Vittorio Storaro and his work, and he's one of the big proponents of using colors, not only lighting and composition and camera movement, but the color can have far bigger impact than no matter what beautifully, amazingly designed shot. And if you look at some of his films, like Conformist, going even back into his early work, like Conformist, or even, I would say probably the best example would be One from the Heart, film that he did with Coppola, which is all about the color. And there's a documentary where Storaro elaborates quite a lot about philosophy and aesthetics and psychology of the color. So to me, the color is really, really important tool. And every time I get involved in a project, I always bring up the question of color. What is the color palette? How are we going to communicate whatever the scene is about, and how are we going to support this by properly using color in a set, in the pieces, in the dressing, in the wardrobe, and then in the lighting, because it all has to be synchronized and perfectly matched. Otherwise, using wrong light color on the wrong type of a set or wardrobe can completely negate and cancel each other. So yeah, color, I mean, there are, of course, some really contemporary great films that are out there, which they do think aesthetically using the color is a very important part of the storytelling. And even in the classes which I teach, I always try to remind the students to think also getting one layer deeper, which is thinking about how use the color to emphasize the emotional impact of the image.
Yeah, the one big example I could just think of off the top of my head was The Matrix, the original Matrix, how it uses the green teal kind of vibe in the Matrix, but when you're in the real world, it's completely naturalistic, very desaturated in color, and that's with production design and with the lighting, but it has a very powerful emotional tie to the story.
Yes, and if you look at some of the more recent films like Neon Demon, shot by Natasha Breyer, it's all about the color, really, or even John Wick. I mean, if you think about that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the psychology of color used exactly to tell the story and support the emotion. So I'm very happy to see that there are directors and cinematographers with very strong color sensibility. They understand how to use it and really convey the idea. Or there are films without any color, very reduced color palette. Like if you think about Revenant, for instance, like an example, it's almost like black and white.
Almost.
It's all gray, beige, brown against the white, and that's the world.
And it was stunning. And it was that time period. It was that time. Yeah, if you made that very bright and very like Michael Bay, super bright colors,
it will take you out of the movie.
Without question.
Also, I can give you another beautiful example. Krzysztof Kieślowski, very famous Polish director whose work I absolutely admire.
Red, blue, white.
Many amazing films that he did. He did also 3 colors, red, blue, and white. Which even in the title of the movie, he's using specific color to communicate the emotion that this particular film is presenting. And that's a film I love to, especially Red. Red is my favorite.
It is my favorite too.
Beautifully coordinated use of color in storytelling. It's just right. It's just right there. And it works really well.
And for everyone out there listening, do yourself a favor and watch Double Life of Veronique. If you get a chance.
Absolutely. And also one less known film called Blind Chance.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Blind Chance. Actually, they had an American remake of this film, but also the great whole decalogue. I'm sure you can find it on Criterion Collection. Whole 10 episodes of 10 Commandments. It's just brilliant. It's done on very low budget. Very low budget. This is talking about low budget filmmaking with amazing storytelling.
Yeah, that was also amazing. Krzysztof Kieślowski, amazing filmmaker to study. Now, speaking of directors, how do you approach working with directors? Because I know a lot of cinematographers out there. Look, I've worked as a director. I've worked with good cinematographers. I've worked with bad cinematographers, and there's always the reason when I work with bad ones. Generally, from my opinion, is that they're trying to impose their their want, their vision for the film, and there's no dialogue and there's no collaboration. It's just like, it's my way or the highway kind of thing, and that's what I have a problem with as a director. So how do you approach working with directors?
That's very interesting. Very interesting question, and this is a question that doesn't really have straight answer. There is really no rule, and I work with a range of directors which are from, just do whatever you want.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
Just do whatever you want. It's fine. I will just take care of performance and just let me know, and it will be fine. To another part of the spectrum, I want 25 millimeter right here, dolly from here, and we go and we boom up and then, and I want to do it in 10 minutes. That's another extreme. So for me, I have to be able to really adapt to the new situation and how certain directors. I find it actually exciting. So it's never the same. Even with the same director, depending on the scene, depending on what we're going for, depending on the type of challenges that we have at this point on the set, how director will be able to communicate and come up with a solution. One of the directors that I did quite a few projects, he likes to work very fast. Mm-hmm. And I understand that. He likes to work very fast even when he has the time. Because he needs to be in turbo overdrive mode mentally, psychologically, in order to get creative, in order to get things going. And he would even get on my case, like, oh, let's go. Like, no, it's fine. No, I just want to go. So I understand that. I understand where this comes from. Some people will probably go crazy and react one way or another. I don't. I'm like, okay, let me switch to my turbo mode. Maybe we can synchronize and still get things the way director wants. Because at the end really is, as much as cinematographer contributes to the film, but it's director's film. Mm-hmm. So I'm here to serve director's vision. I'm not here to make my own movie. If I want to make my own movie, then I'm going to take camera and shoot whatever nature videos or some experimental films or just take my still camera and make my still images where I'm the one and only author of the image and I do images the way I want. Mm-hmm. But with the director, this is a team process, collaborative process. And as a cinematographer, we have to be in the position that we can adapt to the whole method of doing things. Television is specifically a good example because, like, if you're on episodic television, you get every week new director. And so in a way, you have to modify and adjust to director's way of doing things. However, as a cinematographer, you also have to protect the style and integrity, or visual integrity of the show. So that's kind of very interesting and a tricky position to be in. But fortunately, a lot of television directors are aware as they come in as a guest director. Well, there is a style that they have to be familiar with when it comes down to the show. So if the show is designed to be all, handheld and quick, whatever, they cannot say, oh, I'm going to go now static, close up. No, it's not going to work.
Right.
It will be different. It will be different show. You can here and there give your own personal signature, but it will be always, has to be within the overall big picture.
So Suki, we finally got together and put together this course called Light and Face, the Art of Cinematography for IFH Academy. And I'm super excited about the course because after being a veteran in this business for over 25 years, I took the course and I learned a lot about cinematography, things that I didn't even know. So it is a wonderful course. Can you talk a little bit about what made you want to put this specific course together?
Well, I've been doing seminars. I've been doing seminars and workshops for pretty much 20-something years among the students, and I was fortunate to go through really, really good proper training academically as a cinematographer. So I always felt that having a structure and a method in teaching and learning is extremely important as a foundation for anything, not only cinematography, for anybody in any type of art. I found out that a lot of people, and some of them quite successful, are pretty good in what they do, but they're missing depth. They're missing foundation. Like there's some great musicians that I came across, and there are some amazing musicians out there, but if you ask them to play anything just basic, they will not even know what you're talking about. If you ask them to transpose the music, they will not understand. So I found out that it's like, if you want to be a really good musician, there's a proper method, which is learning the basic, learning the scale, learning the harmonies, learning the melodies, and then putting it all together. And then once you reach the point that you really understand what is the core, what is the essence of what you do, then you are far more free to experiment and do things your own way, because you know the basics, you know the rules, and then you can break them. Breaking rules just for sake of breaking rules, I don't think necessarily is always productive or creative. Maybe occasionally breaking some rules might bring you something, but then how you venture into something different. So I've been teaching cinematography for quite some time, in between the projects, doing workshops, and I found out that what students and aspiring cinematographers really respond to is when we go back to basics. And when I guide them from very, very basic one single light, starting from a dark. And if you have a concept, okay, this is one single light, what you can do with this one single light. Imagine painting, that you're going to paint something and you say, this is one brush, this is one color. What you can create only with these two things. And if you find out what you can do with one brush, one color, meaning if you can do the same thing with one light, even if it's a light bulb in one frame, then you can easily build upon that further. Then you can get, okay, I'm going to get now 2 colors, 3 colors, more brushes. Then I can create masterpiece, big, beautiful, whatever I'm going to go. It's same thing in the music. Once you understand how the intricacies of each instrument work, what's the difference between violins and pianos and harp, and then you can create symphony, because you understand. You can sit down and write and feel completely comfortable that what you're writing for the violin and for the cellos and for the clarinet or anything, it will at the end sound really well. So this is kind of my metaphor explaining why I wanted to do what I did. So I felt there has to be a way that somebody does it kind of like the way I always wanted to be. I wanted to be taught that way, starting from very, very basic and then building up structurally, and then explaining the styles, explaining the concept, and then really feel comfortable about it. So that's the reason why I really created the show, the series, because I felt if somebody is really watching and applying this knowledge gradually after each course, doing your own thing and finding out, okay, what it takes if I take light bulb and put it here and observe and get understanding what you can do with the light, how you can paint and create with light. What happens if I diffuse the light? What happens if I add maybe one more light? Or maybe if I put a color here, how is this image going to be changed? How you can, and again, at the end, it comes down to whole emotional response. So I wanted to create a course which is comprehensive, but geared towards really understanding the core and basic of cinematography, which is using light from one light, adding another one, changing the color, changing the diffusion, changing all these elements, which gives you ability to modify still the same tool, which is light. And what's the subject? It's the face. Well, why the face? Because if you understand how to light a face and all the details and intricacies, interaction between geography and topography of the face and how the whole things look together, and how can it just slightly changing the angle and position of the light, you can completely change appearance of the face, then you will understand what you can do with this different type of lights to the set, or maybe some other, some other object and subject that you're filming. So face is what the face. Face is something we photograph like 90% of the time in your typical film or television or anything. It's all about face. It's about performance. It's about capturing your performance, and you with the light giving it exactly right kind of mood, the right kind of emotion to enhance what this performance is all about.
Well, I'm excited to bring the course to everybody out there interested in cinematography. It is probably the best cinematography course I've ever taken, and I'm very proud to have it as part of the Indie Film Hustle Academy. Now, I'm going to ask you one last question, sir. What would be the advice for a young cinematographer trying to break into the business today?
Well, if you ask me that question 2 months ago, I will probably give you a different answer.
Fair enough. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
But in the present day, I think as a young cinematographer, what you need to do, you need to educate yourself. Think about what you do as a cinematographer. Think about every image that you're doing, why you're doing this way, not that way, and understand the light. Everything will change. Cameras will be different. Lenses will be maybe different. But that one thing that will never, ever change is the light. Still, at the end of the day, there has to be some cinematographer, somebody who would either put the light on the face or on the set or on the scene or on the subject, or take the light away or control it, but create something that communicates. So as a cinematographer, you have to understand how to communicate visually, which means invest in educating yourself, study fine art, study painting, see what they did, and watch the movie. I think for every cinematographer, you can learn a lot from just looking at the film that's been done, at all kind of amazing cinematography achievements in the last, decades. And I think it can be educational, can be inspiring, can be stimulative. And then when you get opportunity to film, whatever it is, don't think about how big or small budget is. Think about how you as a cinematographer can give your best to support the story. And that would be probably my advice. Educate yourself and get the understanding what really cinematography is all about. And that's going to make you a very, really well-rounded cinematographer. And never give up educating yourself. The beauty of cinematography is a field that is constantly changing. So that's the best thing about it. You'll never get bored.
My friend, I could talk to you for hours about cinematography, but I do appreciate you taking the time out to talk to me and to the tribe. And again, so excited to be presenting Light and Face, the Art of Cinematography. I really do appreciate you being on the show and dropping your knowledge bombs, as I like to call them. So thank you again so much, my friend. Stay safe out there, okay?
Thank you, you too.
I want to thank Suki so much for coming on the show and really shedding some light on the whole COVID-19, how we're going to reopen, and all the great knowledge bombs he dropped on the tribe today. If you want to get links to anything we discussed in this episode, please head over to the show notes at indiefilmhustle.com/388. And in there, you will find a link to a limited time offer on Suki's new course, Light and Face, the Art of Cinematography. We are right now in a pre-launch, early adopter time period. So up until May 23rd, you can get his course for $197. It retails for $697. So this is a once in a lifetime chance to get this course below $200. The course will never be offered at that price ever again. So if you want to take advantage of it, head over to indiefilmhustle.com/388 for the show notes, and you can find the link there, or you can go just directly to IFH Academy.com and also check out all of our other courses that we have there to offer you as well. And like I said in yesterday's episode, I will be working diligently to bring you amazing new courses to help you guys on your filmmaking or screenwriting path. And even if you're not a cinematographer, if you're a director, you want to take this course. It'll be the best 2.5 hours you'll spend during this quarantine. It really will give you a real great foundation to talk to your cinematographer about, or even, God forbid, shoot your own stuff. Thanks again for listening, guys. as always, keep that hustle going, keep that dream alive, stay safe, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Indie Film Hustle podcast at indiefilmhustle.com. That's INDIEFILMHUSTLE.com.